Greetings. My name is Jim Spaeth, and I serve as the Bioenergy Systems Development Program Manager for the U.S. Department of Energy. And it's also my pleasure to be serving as the newly elected chair of the Biofuture Platform Initiative. Welcome to the CEM Biofuture Campaign launch event. It's an honor to be opening this event among such distinguished leaders of governments, industry, and other stakeholders. The primary goal of this event is to formally introduce the Biofuture Campaign, which falls under the Biofuture Platform Initiative, launched at CEM11 to the broader CEM community, and to invite new participants to join the campaign. Another key goal of the campaign is to foster strong and active private sector engagement with the Biofuture Initiative members. The mission of the Biofuture Campaign is to enable the reduction of GHG emissions and foster a circular economy by showcasing pathways by which countries, companies, and consumers can substitute bio and waste-based fuels, chemicals, and materials for their fossil equivalents. Bioenergy is always local, but it must also be global to fulfill the aspirations required for our collective 2050 net zero goals. The Biofuture CEM campaign can be a key enabler in fulfilling these global ambitions by bringing together the strengths of governments and industry across the world. I want to give our collective deepest thanks and acknowledgement to the government of Brazil, and in particular to my colleague, Renato Godinho, the head of the Division of Energy Progress for the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Brazil, for catalyzing and leading the Biofuture Platform, which was initiated at COP22 in Marrakesh in 2016. We all owe our deep gratitude to Brazil and Renato for the Biofuture program. Next, I want to recognize Dr. Paulo Frankel, the head of the Renewable Energy Division at the IEA, who is leading the IEA in coordinating the CEM Biofuture Initiative. And finally, I want to recognize and thank Dr. Gerard Ostheimer, the founder and CEO of the Biofuture Workshop, who has devoted tremendous personal energy and ingenuity in catalyzing the CEM campaign and who will serve as its co-organizer. This launch event will consist of 3 segments. The first session will include opening remarks by the IEA Executive Director and scene setting and interventions by selected member countries. The second segment is to be led by Gerard Ostheimer, will consist of a panel of key global leading bioenergy companies. And the final segment will conclude with remarks by Dr. Paulo Frankel and Mr. Dan Dorner, the head of the CEM Secretariat. So it is now my honor and privilege to introduce our first speaker. That is Dr. Fatih Birol, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency.
Dear colleagues, I wish to express my gratitude to Chile for hosting such an excellent ministerial, and to Brazil, Canada, India, and the US for inviting the IEA to open this new Biofuture campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take the opportunity to share the IEA's most recent analysis. On 18th of May, a few days ago, the IEA presented the most comprehensive and detailed attempt ever made to detail out what net zero by 2050 means in practice, with more than 400 suggested milestones between now and 2050. Why was this roadmap needed? The level of commitment to fight against climate change has never been higher. But if we take a step back, the picture is not very encouraging, because as our numbers show, this year we are going to see a big increase in the global emissions, and this will be the second largest increase in the history. So there is a growing and widening gap between the rhetoric and what is happening in the real life. And it is the reason we believe, in addition to making the most out of the existing clean energy technologies, there is a need for huge leaps in clean energy innovation. One of the big opportunities we highlight in our report is the opportunity for sustainable bioenergy to reach net zero by 2050. In particular, bioenergy uses in heavy industry and long-distance transport. For example, in our roadmap, we say that the sustainable aviation fuels are to supply half of total world aviation fuel consumption by 2040. Only 20 years from now, half of the world total aviation fuel consumption. Therefore, as International Energy Agency, we welcome the Biofuture Campaign aspiration goal to substitute 10% bio and waste-based fuels, chemicals, and materials for their fossil fuel equivalent by 2030. I would like to conclude by thanking the Brazilian government for its leadership in the Biofuture platform to date and for your trust to International Energy Agency. I also would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the US for taking over the platform chairmanship. The IEA will be honored to continue serving as facilitator of the platform under your guidance. Thank you.
Dr. Birol, thank you so much for your talk and enlightening and setting the scene. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. David Turk, the Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Energy.
Thank you for inviting me to speak with you at this very important Biofuture Platform event. It's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this esteemed panel. In the United States, President Biden has committed us to reducing emissions by at least 50% by the end of this decade, reaching 100% clean electricity by 2035 and net zero emissions by 2050. The innovation and deployment of a broad range of clean energy technologies is absolutely critical to achieving these ambitious goals. That's why here at the Department of Energy, we're working every single day to research, development, and pursue the deployment of the clean energy technologies of the future. We need to deploy a broad suite of innovative technologies within systemic, comprehensive solutions. And the transportation sector has some particular challenges. In the US, transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. We plan to dramatically accelerate the deployment of electric vehicles and charging infrastructure at the same time that we're pursuing aggressive, ambitious actions to have a 100% clean electricity sector by 2035. But for the transportation sector, electrification can't do it all, especially in areas requiring high energy density fuels like aviation, marine, transport, heavy-duty trucking, and rail. Deploying sustainable transportation fuels is a critical piece of this puzzle. We project in the US alone, the US could use 36 billion gallons of sustainable aviation fuel by 2050. But we can't wait to 2050 to get there. We need to act now. We need to make sure we're making significant investments in bioenergy development now and to more fully catalyze the bioeconomy. It is also very true that no country can do it alone. We need to promote multilateral collaboration, extensive policy dialogue to promote sustainable bioenergy growth globally. And let me take this moment to sincerely thank Brazil for leading, for launching, and conducting the Biofuture Platform. Since the Biofuture Platform's launch in November 2016 at COP22 in Marrakesh, the Biofuture Platform has been a key instrument for spearheading this kind of multilateral collaboration and policy discussion. And thanks also to Brazil's leadership, working with a host of other countries, thanks for leading the Biofuture Platform becoming a CEM initiative last year, a big part of the evolution of this important effort. I also want to thank the IEA for leading the coordination of the Biofuture Platform Initiative and providing global leadership in clean energy technology analysis and visioning, not just on bioenergy issues, but the full suite of technologies. The IEA's recently released roadmap to net zero clearly shows the importance of bioenergy, along with a full suite of energy technologies to reach 2050 net global zero. I'm also very excited that the U.S. is assuming the chair of the Biofuture Platform Initiative. As the new chair, we'll continue increasing the number and diversity of country members in order to make this a truly global coalition. Among other issues, and consultation, of course, with Brazil and all the members of the Biofuture Platform, we'll focus on developing sustainable biomass supply chains. We'll explore, forge consensus on environmental understanding of biomass as a key element of the clean energy technology revolution. We'll accelerate technology to hasten bioenergy development in all sorts of ways. We'll engage the private sector as the key ultimate pathway to wide-scale commercialization. We'll stimulate green finance to enable deployment and replication around the globe. And we'll work to converge critical policies to enable success. The U.S. is also very excited not only to be the new chair of the Biofuture Platform Initiative, but also to be a part of the new CEM Biofuture Campaign. We stand behind its mission to enable the reduction of GHG emissions and foster a circular economy by showcasing pathways in which countries, companies, and consumers can substitute sustainable bio and waste-based fuels, chemicals, and materials for their fossil fuel equivalents. This new campaign creates a tremendous opportunity for governments to work with the private sector, International Bioenergy Organization, and a whole host of other key actors in this ecosystem. We very much look forward to all that the Biofuture Platform Initiative and the Biofuture Campaign can accomplish over this absolutely critical year in the global fight against climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turk. It's been an honor to have you in the program today. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Thiago Barral, Executive President for the Energy Research Office of Brazil.
Well, thank you, Jim. Dear energy leaders and authorities here, Biofuture government and private sector representatives, CEM community delegates, speakers in attendance. I'm very pleased to be in another Biofuture Platform event here at the Clean Energy Ministerial. Now, under the leadership of the US, which has just taken the role of president of the Biofuture Platform in the wake of Brazil. Thank you to our hosts in Chile who have so competently organized this CEM Ministerial, and thank you to the IEA as facilitator, and also Biofuture Platform member countries which have worked hard for this important launch today. First, I would like to mention the significant progress over the last 5 years in consolidating the Biofuture Platform's position as the premier international forum working to realize the bioeconomy's potential as a key component of the global energy transition. The launch of the Biofuture Initiative under CEM last year was an important part of that construction, as were the assumption of the facilitator role by the IEA in 2019, and just last week during the second Biofuture Summit conference, the passage of the chairmanship to the United States. Brazil wishes all the best of success to the US, a world leader in this field, and will continue as co-leads in the core group, doing as much as we can to help drive the Biofuture Platform. Sustainable low-carbon bioenergy and the bioeconomy are key solutions in our efforts towards carbon neutrality. As the executive director mentioned, the new IEA roadmap to net zero projects that sustainable bioenergy has to grow from 40 to around 100 exajoule by 2050. And liquid biofuels have to more than quadruple from 1.6 to 7 million barrels of oil equivalent per day. This is an opportunity to the world, as sustainable bioenergy and bioeconomy are also job intensive, promote development, add value to rural production, contribute to diversify energy sources, and increase energy security. Indeed, the bioenergy sector can create 30 jobs per $1 million of investment, which is an impressive amount. Now it's time to accelerate implementation of the right policies and instruments to realize this potential for the benefit of the climate and the economy. This was recognized by the Biofuture Platform countries last year as they launched the 5 principles for post-COVID bioeconomy recovery and acceleration, calling for urgent policy deployment, development, and funding to seize the opportunity for bioeconomy to be a key driver of the green recovery. Last year, we also launched the Biofuture Platform Initiative at CEM, and less than a year later, we gather once again now to launch a campaign which includes a carbon substitution challenge and will count on strong engagement of the private sector. This campaign is the perfect fit for the new phase of CEM's work, which will have more attentive look towards other sectors besides electricity, truly broadening CEM's scope to the entire energy sector. Brazil has a long-standing experience in the use of modern bioenergy and biofuels, which has made us able to competitively produce modern biomass with high levels of sustainability. In fact, bioenergy is the most important renewable energy source in Brazil, 19 of total energy in 2020, which is a major factor contributing to the country, for the country to have the cleanest energy mix among the largest economies in the world. Still, we are pushing ahead with policies looking into the future. Last year, Brazil's national biofuel policy, RenovaBio, came into full implementation. This policy ties incentives to environmental performance measured with a transparent scientific methodology for carbon life cycle analysis. CBio credits, a financial instrument linked to emission reductions based on low carbon fuels, are traded in São Paulo's stock exchange with over $220 million in financial transactions last year. It is certainly a key instrument for Brazil to achieve the carbon substitution challenge that is being proposed today, and we are keen to share and debate this experience with fellow countries. Building on that, we have just launched a consultation process towards finalizing the so-called Fuels for Future program, which is looking at modernizing our bioeconomy pathways, introducing policies and instruments to promote bioenergy with CCS, aviation biofuels, biomethane deployment, among others. And we are also developing bioplastics and biomaterials, and we hope to exponentially grow our bioeconomy. We are therefore not only supportive, but thrilled to see this campaign launch. We are looking forward to the private sector's engagement and commitment in this endeavor, and the presence of representatives of leading companies in the bioeconomy space here today is a sure sign of this joint mobilization and public-private partnership and dialogue that will be ever more required. As we engage in new important work streams discussed in the Biofuture Summit held last week on sustainability governance and financing the bioeconomy, the inputs, the drive, and the expertise of those companies will be extremely necessary. Thank you very much, and look forward to the developments of this new campaign.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barral, for those opening comments, for describing some of the great accomplishments so far of the Biofuture Initiative, laying out the challenges that we have globally, and presenting many of the activities going on in Brazil that are very exciting going forward. And the U.S. looks very much forward to continuing to work closely with Brazil as a co-lead going forward. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce another co-lead country member, Ms. Molly Johnson, the Assistant Deputy Administrator for the Low Carbon Energy Sector for Natural Resources Canada. Ms. Johnson, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Johnson, and I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister for Low Carbon Energy at Canada's Ministry of Natural Resources. I'm pleased to be here with both my international government colleagues and Canadian industry leads working on advancing the bioenergy cause. And what a cause! The world's largest renewable energy source, bioenergy holds enormous promise. It is critical in decarbonizing sectors where electrification is more challenging, such as heavy freight, heavy industry, and marine and air transport. The recently launched IEA Net Zero by 2050 roadmap points to it as a key pillar to reaching net zero in 2050, with biofuels providing 65% of global aviation fuel by then. Our government considers bioenergy a key component of its plan to reach our new ambitious 2030 emissions reduction targets and our 2050 net zero goals. We see Canada's economy in 2050 being powered by two equally important energy sources, clean power and clean fuels. Canada has an abundant and diverse range of sustainable feedstocks that can be used to produce a variety of biofuels and bioproducts, helping to grow our circular economy and create new opportunities for farmers, forestry companies, and municipalities. We also have a world-leading clean fuels companies, as evidenced by my fellow panelists, thanks to early and strategic investments on the part of the federal and provincial governments. These advantages help our clean fuel sector deliver on our ambitious climate agenda, which I'm pleased to say has advanced considerably since our last meeting. Last November, our government introduced the Watershed Net Zero Accountability Act, putting into legislation our net zero target. Following this milestone, we've released a hydrogen strategy for Canada, bringing economic and environmental opportunities across our country while positioning Canada to be a global supplier of choice for clean hydrogen and the technologies to use it. This was supported by the release of the Strengthened Climate Plan, which laid the foundation for Canada to go beyond our 2030 targets on our path to net zero, including new and enhanced measures to increase demand and supply for clean fuels, including an enhanced carbon pollution price for clean fuels regulations. As you can see, Canada is continuing to grow our clean fuels industry with an eye to ensuring long-term sustainability. Such investments in clean fuel production can create jobs, stimulate private sector investments, and generate revenue and support energy security. They also offer a crucial low-carbon pathway for Canada's conventional energy sector. But for Canada to seize the economic and environmental opportunities presented by clean fuels, we need to stay focused, adapt to market conditions, invest in our businesses, and establish strategic international partnerships. However, our success must be measured not only by what we can do within our borders, but what we can accomplish together globally. That's why we're a founding member of both the Biofutures Platform, launched at COP22 in 2016, and the CEM Biofuture Platform Initiative, launched at CEM last year, as the cornerstone of public-private collaboration to deploy bioenergy, expand its trade, and accelerate its use globally. Building on this momentum, we're ready to take the next step. Today, in collaboration with our industry partners, we are launching the Biofuture Campaign, an initiative that showcases how biofuels can contribute to the energy transition and advance the circular economy. The goal of this initiative is to accelerate deployment and market uptake of bio and waste-based fuels, chemicals, and materials for use in reducing their net carbon dioxide emissions. We're excited to have two of our key industry leaders, Enerchem and the Canadian Fuels Association, in attendance for today's launch. The goal here is to strengthen existing networks in the public and private sectors, as well as academia, to forge new strategic partnerships that transcend borders. The CEM Biofutures Initiative and today's new Biofuture Campaign are key to advancing this agenda. Canada is ready to work with all of you to grow the global bioeconomy, cementing its essential role in a net zero future. Together, we can do this. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, thank you very much for your remarks and for laying out some of the activities going on in Canada and opportunities there. And that's a wrap up for this panel. It's been an excellent set of speakers and very enlightening. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the second panel. And I'll turn it over now to Dr. Gerard Ostheimer, founder and CEO of the Biofuture Workshop.
Thank you very much, Jim. Hello, everyone. And first of all, thank you very much to all of our previous panelists from the policymaker side. The purpose of this panel is actually to allow some of the people that are going to develop and deploy the products of the future bioeconomy to speak. And so my name is Gerard Ostheimer. I will be serving as the co-manager of the Biofuture Campaign, along with Paulo Frankel from the International Energy Agency. And today I will be introducing and moderating our panel on industry speakers. Something I'd like to say at the outset, however, is that the premise of our campaign, a big motivator of our campaign, is the fact that electrification is absolutely necessary, but it is not sufficient to achieve the climate goals of the Paris Agreement or to achieve a thriving circular economy. The energy transition and the circular economy require non-fossil fuels, chemicals, and materials to substitute for their fossil equivalent in diverse sectors. In order to catalyze this transition, we are creating the Biofuture Campaign, which will be centered around what we refer to as the bio-based substitution challenge. For that challenge, signatories aspire to substitute bio and waste-based fuels, chemicals, and materials for 10% of their fossil carbon equivalents in sectors and products of their choosing by 2030, relative to a 2019 fossil use baseline. The campaign specifically will add value by, one, engaging leaders of the bioeconomy with the broader clean energy transition. A point that was made during our previous panel is the fact that there's going to be a need for integration and for a systemic approach whereby electrification and these other technologies work together in an extremely complementary way. The Clean Energy Ministerial, the second way that we will add value is that by working with the governments of the Clean Energy Ministerial, we can raise the level of the bioeconomy in the global discussion. We can foster joint work streams between governments and industry and other interested stakeholders, NGO, civil society, etc. And lastly, we will bolster outreach and communication and awareness among the public and policymakers and investors regarding the amazing progress that we have made on the sustainability governance of the use of bio and waste-based feedstocks. And we can showcase intelligent, thoughtful, and rational approaches to bring these feedstocks and use them to develop the fuels, chemicals, and materials of the future circular economy. At the moment, we are very actively recruiting campaign partners and members, and we look forward to working with you and having you join our campaign. You can contact us via the Biofuture Platform Initiative facilitator or through me, the co-manager of the campaign. Joining us now and to show the way forward on substitution are our speakers, Jennifer Holmgren from Lanzatech, Dennis Arguin from Enerchem, Dr. Ramakumar from Indianoil, Mr. Jorge Soto, who is the Director of Sustainable Development for Braskem, Professor Luuk van der Wielen, Chair of the Bioeconomy Platform for the Netherlands, and Mr. David Schick, who is a Vice President for the Western side of the country from the Canadian Fuels Association. Our first presentation, our first intervention, will be made by Dr. Jennifer Holmgren, CEO of Lanzatech.
It is my honor to address the Biofuture panel and to kick off the industrial session. Indeed, so many familiar faces, friends, and collaborators, people that have championed the bioeconomy and a clear path to a world where everything we use in our daily lives starts as a waste carbon rather than a fresh fossil carbon. To safeguard our future, we must use carbon wisely and not treat it as a single-use liability. Using waste and residues as feedstocks is essential to give carbon a second chance of life, making new products that would otherwise come from fossil carbon resources. Lanzatech and our partners are working to ensure that waste and residues can be used sustainably to create a carbon-smart world. We know that electricity can be carbon-free, but we still need a source of carbon for many things in our daily lives. from the chemicals needed in consumer goods to aviation fuel. Through biological carbon capture and utilization, technologies today are showing that there is value in carbon, and in creating that value, we can avoid emissions and keep the sky and the ocean blue for everybody. So is this science fiction? Is that future possible? Absolutely. LanzaTech now has 2 commercially operating plants that take waste carbon and biologically convert that carbon to ethanol. So instead of this carbon emission going out the flue and the smokestack of a steel mill or a ferroalloy plant, instead we compress it, run it through a bioreactor, and make ethanol. And this year we've shown that that ethanol can be put into consumer products. For example, perfumes or cleaning capsules. We have also shown that we can make apparel and bottles from these products. And of course, we are working to ensure that aviation fuel can come from recycled carbon, have launched LanzaJet, which is now scaling the technology that we developed with PNNL and the Department of Energy that takes ethanol selectively to 90% aviation fuel. This is a very exciting future. And as we stand today at a critical moment in time, we're deploying technologies that achieve net zero must happen at a rate that's never been seen before. We are grateful to have the opportunity to contribute. And we are seeing governments globally jump in, increase support for carbon capture and reuse, for waste-based solution, for infrastructure deployment that enables a lower carbon future. But more importantly, we are seeing support for collaboration across countries that would normally not have collaborated. And this is all to get on a fast path to a low carbon future. And this is wonderful because no country has a monopoly on good ideas, good researchers, and new technology. As an example, Dr. Ramakumar from Indianoil will speak later. We have been collaborating with Indianoil and the Department of Biotechnology to scale a technology that bolts on our technology and their technology and enables us to take CO2 all the way to lipids, all the way to omega-3s. So we are able to contribute by taking CO2 and channeling CO2 and green electrons and green hydrogen to a nutritious product. This is the power to X concept that everybody talks about, and we're making it a reality. The Biofuture Platform is a champion for technology, and its mission is to foster the circular economy by supporting sustainable bio and waste-based fuels, chemicals, and materials that can compete with their fossil equivalents. We believe the platform can help technology deployment by highlighting the benefits of this approach in countries where policy is still overly prescriptive. This not only supports technologies, but the countries that benefit from job creation, carbon abatement, and value creation. Indeed, this is a call to action. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. And I know how hard you've been working for many years, and it is extremely exciting to see your pilot projects evolve into deployments, and we look forward to seeing more opportunities for collaboration with you, and we take your message regarding the need for international collaboration very seriously. Our third speaker is Dr. Ramakumar, Director for Research and Development and Board Member of Indianoil. Dr. Ramakumar, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Gerard, for inviting me to this Biofuture platform. I'm very honored to present some of the activities of my company, Indianoil, the largest fossil fuel-based company in the country, in my country, and also some of the Indian policy initiatives. The bio campaign of India is majorly governed by three policies: the National Biofuel Policy 2018, where there is a mandatory blending of ethanol derived from first, second, and third generation sources, initially to 10%, and then by 2030, as it was announced, to 20% in motor spirit. But recently, just a couple of months back, government has revised that target and advanced that 20% of blending target to 2025. Also, there is a mandate to blend biodiesel up to 7% and beyond in diesel, because India is a dieselized country. And so these are the two initiatives which were long conceived by Government of India as a consequence of the clarion call given by our Honorable Prime Minister to reduce the fossil fuel imports by 10%. Then Government of India also launched a very ambitious program of converting waste, organic waste, into gas, biomethane, and auto-grade biomethane. And this program is called SATAT. This is an acronym for Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transport. So by which Government of India would like to set up 5,000 biomethanation plants which will convert the organic waste, whether it is agricultural residue or food waste, agricultural waste, or any other organic waste, to compressed biogas of auto quality under public-private partnership model. So, governed by these programs, as state-controlled oil company and largest oil company of the country, we at Indianoil are setting up 3 biorefineries to produce second-generation ethanol. And my R&D center is developing indigenous second-generation ethanol for converting lignocellulosic residues to ethanol in a much faster way. And the enzyme which is required for this technology is indigenously developed, which will save 30% of the operational expenditure of these technologies. Similarly, we developed a biomethanation technology which we claim to yield one of the highest methane contents in that class of technologies. So these are all implemented. Several plants are being set up using these technologies, and they are available for licensing throughout the world by our company. And as Dr. Jennifer, my previous speaker, mentioned, in collaboration with Lancetech USA, we are setting up for the first time in the world to convert the refinery off gases from a hydrogen generation unit rich with hydrogen and carbon monoxide into ethanol, and we are calling it as third generation ethanol. A 33,000 kl per annum, kiloliters per annum of capacity of plant is coming up in one of our refineries, and it is going to go on stream by the end of this year, this calendar year. So these are the initiatives we feel that it will keep us in good stead to achieve that longer objective of reducing 10% of fossil fuel footprint in the national energy scenario. But like other countries, we also feel that these advanced biofuels need to be incentivized till they reach the economies of scale, so that the end user would be motivated enough to adopt them as fuels, and thereby the environmental sustenance can be achieved. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramakumar. And we certainly intend for the Biofuture Campaign to be a place where we can highlight the role of the type of research and development that you're doing, that we can highlight the role for policies to bring these advanced fuels to market, and that we can achieve all of the decarbonization potential that they have. Thank you very much for joining us. Our next speaker joins us from Brazil. This is Mr. Jorge Soto. He is the Director of Sustainable Development for Braskem. Jorge, it's very nice to see you again.
Thank you, Gerald. Very nice to see you, Gerald, and it's an honor to be with you. Well, you know perhaps very well that back in 2006, we in Braskem identified the opportunity to be part of the solution for climate change through the development of productions of bioplastic using biofuel, ethanol from sugarcane. We began the technology development for our first facility of bio-based ethylene, and then this facility started up in 2010, so more than 10 years ago, with the capacity to produce 200,000 tons per year. Braskem nowadays is the largest biopolymer producer of the world. We continue to invest in this technology in market development for this kind of product. We are already exporting our bio-based polyethylene for more than 40 countries. We have already developed other products like bio-based polypropylene, bio-based EVA, and we are developing with a partnership with a Danish company called hard-to-abate, the bio-based monoethylene glycol. That's raw material to produce another plastic PET. We are also investing in alternatives routes to use circular or renewable raw materials. This is ongoing also. So we continue to bet in this pathway. We have announced this February a new investment of $61 million for the expansion of our industrial facility to produce more 60,000 tons per year. So we are betting in this pathway. Why we are doing that? Mainly due to three reasons. First, because we understand Brazil. We are based in Brazil, but we have operations in other countries. But Brazil has a comparative advantage for the production of more sustainable products. Brazil has an energy matrix that has already achieved 45% of renewable resources, and 60% of the share is coming from biomass, mainly from sugarcane. The second reason is because we see that this comparative advantage could continue to grow. An analysis from FAO showing that from 1991 to 2015, the productivity in agriculture has grown 3% in Brazil. This is twice the global average. And the third reason is because the needs and therefore the market for this kind of product is already growing due to the climate crisis. This last aspect could be an opportunity for any country that produce biofuels. It's not clear what will be the future of fuels for automobiles, for any kind, bio or fossil. But I think that it's clear that we still need food, clothes, water, mobility, etc. And for that, plastics are essential. So biopolymers and biochemicals could be a good future for biofuels. You know that very well. Of course, there are also threats that we should be aware. Still today, there are some concerns about the sustainability aspects of biofuels, and as a consequence of their downstream value chain. Some people are saying that the carbon biogenic content of the product could not be considered as a positive contribution of the biopolymers to the climate change mitigation. We question, why not? We could measure the C14 in the product, and if the product is stable, why not? I think this could be easily solved. It's just a question of having science-based discussion. Anyhow, we see more opportunities than threats. The main challenges are around technology development and good management of land use change. I think those two are the main ones. For both, good policy guidance coming from the Biofuture Platform could help. The technology development needs high-risk investments. Public policies that bring incentives for this kind of development will certainly help. Public policy also could support the recovery of degraded areas or the use of regenerative agriculture. This would help some criticisms around the land use change. Also, to conclude, Gerard, it's clear that the challenges for a carbon neutral society will need solutions, new solutions. And we are sure that for this future, we will need biofuels, biochemicals, biopolymers. This will be our biofuture. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you for painting a picture of Braskem's leadership on taking the feedstock, which we normally think of as for ethanol, and deploying it now for plastics and the other materials that we need, also mentioned by Jennifer Holmgren. And we very much look forward to working with you to think through ideas around land use, sustainable, intelligent intensification of agriculture, and how that best can be combined with climate-smart agriculture to drive the decarbonization that we all recognize and embrace. So thank you, Jorge, for joining us. I'll be in touch very soon. Our next speaker is the chairman of the Dutch Platform for Bioeconomy. This is Professor Luuk van der Wielen, who has been leading the charge in growing the bioeconomy, having contributed significantly on the technical side, and arguably most importantly, by training hundreds of people that have gone out to develop better products. So, Professor van der Wielen, please.
Thank you, Gerard, for introducing me, and please call me Luuk. The Netherlands is associated for many on the call, I believe, with wooden shoes, which are sustainable, with windmills, which are sustainable, with cheese and cows, which we understand are not that sustainable, with KLM, which is a company that does a great effort to increase its sustainability, but is mostly fueled still with fossil fuels. The Port of Rotterdam as the largest port in Europe, which is primarily a fossil port. So it is a country that has embraced bioeconomy very early on, has built reputations in that from 16th, 17th century, but also embarked on the fossil economy quite dearly, and is now, because of that, in a situation in which it needs to change massively into renewables again, bio-based, but also other renewables in that context. The platform Bioeconomy is an industry grouping that is the leading industry group that is targeting the development of a fully renewable and sustainable carbon neutral society in which the product chains are as circular and also bio-based as possible. We want to base this on bioeconomy technology development. So my personal background, which is more in academia than in industry, is relevant in this context, but also on the business and the policies. The Bioeconomy Platform, I'm recently appointed as the chair of the platform, is a primarily industry platform. And the belief of the platform is that both the energetic and also the materials, so think about the materials itself, construction materials, food, use of sustainable bio-based resources and other renewables is indispensable for the transition to an affordable, reliable, and carbon neutral economy. That's not an easy thing with an economy as busy as the Dutch economy, as open as the Dutch economy, with an limited internal market and a large look at the external market. So in order to help that development, the platform has embarked on the development of a concrete investment agenda. We realize that it is across various industry sectors, so it is not only the energy or the chemical sector, which have been addressed by some of the other speakers already, but it is an agenda that crosses also towards the food sector, towards the construction sector, towards mobility, towards trade, banking, and so on. So it is very clear that we have to understand the relationship between these various sectors and how they can contribute jointly to a further improvement of that economy. So the first role of the platform is to embark on a macroeconomic impact study that looks across the various sectors and looks into where do you really put your money wisely? What sort of capabilities do we have to develop? And what is the role of the Dutch in that? It is partially domestic, but unlike many of the other countries, and some of the representatives at this meeting are clearly from large countries, such as Brazil and the US. But we have to look also into how we build our networks outside of that, how we invest internally and also reach out externally. Policies have been developed on that. I have a background in that as well. I've been leading Dutch bio-based public-private partnerships for the last 15 years. And recently we have developed a number of agendas, innovation agendas in particular, which actually target at all the resources, products and processes in Dutch industry to be net carbon neutral in 2050 and for at least 80% circular. That's a huge challenge from where we are. That requires new pathways, so that's where the innovation can come. New efficient product process combination, where bio-based and circular feedstocks are important, including cascades and including the cross-sector approach. So all of this is part of what the group, the industry group, Platform Bioeconomy really ambitions. The big issue is obviously that this needs to happen in a conducive context that requires a stable policy around bio-based economy, around innovation, and so on. The Netherlands has developed a policy for that, but with the change of government, this policy has not yet been endorsed, and it is critical. Investments won't happen unless there is a stable economy framework, and that is something that I hope and trust that the new incoming government of the Netherlands, stimulated by the opportunities that the bio-based economy has across the various sectors, across the chemical, the food, materials, energy, transport, and construction sectors, that they take this step to ensure a very wise and stable policy framework in which the discussion, which at this moment is not always equally favorable for bio-based opportunities, has come to a much more stable framework. So with that, I trust that the international opportunities that the Biofutures platform brings is going to help and stimulate and inspire our new government to set the steps of a bioeconomy in a renewables world in which we believe that it can bring economic prosperity, the jobs, and the positive effect on the climate that we all aspire. And with that, I think I go back to Gerard. Thank you.
Thank you, Luuk. Thank you, Luuk. And we completely agree on the importance of the cross-sectoral approach. Obviously, everything is connected through energy, whether through food or materials or energy production. And 100%, we look forward to working with you and your leadership in the taking lessons learned from the Dutch experience. And first of all, helping the Dutch to solidify their position, make their position more stable, but then take your learnings and engage the rest of the world to create the circular system that we all desire. So thank you very much. I look forward to working with you in the very near future. All right. moving on, our next speaker comes from across the Atlantic, actually bordering the Pacific, Mr. David Schick, who is the Vice President for the Western half of Canada for the Canadian Fuels Association. And it is essential that we work with leaders in the fuel space to drive decarbonization, and we are glad to do so. Mr. Schick.
Thank you, Gerard. Fuels Association members provide 95% of the gasoline, diesel, and marine and aviation fuel used in Canada. So our organization is critical to the energy mix. We also provide 25% of domestic biofuels. As we move forward to a lower carbon future, the Canadian Fuels Association members will leverage today's infrastructure, our refineries with the scale, know-how, and logistics capability, and our members' evolving presence in biofuels, bringing new and current fuels together in ways which benefit both the environment and the economy. The Fuels Association supports innovation by identifying and communicating program and partnership opportunities. We are also working with governments to develop policy frameworks that accelerate large-scale biofuel production by leveraging both Canada's diverse natural resource mix and our existing infrastructure. We also seek out and share global best practices in policy and technology. Last fall, we released our vision for the future, Driving to 2050, in which we outline how our industry can make foundational contributions to Canada's low-carbon future. A key pillar of that strategy is to provide more low-carbon fuels. For members, these efforts are underway today, using proven technologies that, as they scale up, will support developing technologies that produce even more low-carbon fuels. Canada has adopted a federal low-carbon policy called the Clean Fuel Regulation, which will be finalized this year. This CFR requires major changes to the energy mix to meet 2030 targets and on to net zero in 2050. Low-carbon liquids, electrification, refinery changes, carbon sequestration, and hydrogen will all play key roles in meeting carbon intensity reduction targets. Canada has the right combination of expertise and resources in agriculture, forestry, oil, and gas to commercialize these new technologies and then share our expertise and those products around the world. We will blend more ethanol, renewable diesel, and biodiesel, and Canada's abundant biomass and fuel production expertise presents significant opportunities to build on current renewables by co-processing biogenic and waste feedstocks in our refineries, as well as in new facilities. New production of low-carbon liquids complementing current renewable blending will make a significant contribution to meeting GHG targets. Canada's Clean Fuel Regulation is built on the principles of being outcome-based and technology neutral. Every jurisdiction driving towards a lower carbon future should adopt these principles. Policies that presuppose optimal technologies stifle innovation and create uncertainty for energy providers. In Canada, each province has relative decarbonization pathway advantages, whether for biofuels, electrification, carbon sequestration, or hydrogen. A rigid policy structure that does not recognize these relative strengths increases costs and slows adoption of new fuels. A stable but flexible policy environment that considers economic competitiveness, including incentives, presents the best opportunity to garner the new investment necessary to meet climate change goals. Common approaches, domestically and internationally, on standards, including life cycle analysis, will help foster dynamic markets for renewables, which in turn will support consumer adoption. The Biofuture Platform can help develop standard practices which support efficient markets, keeping costs down for consumers, which will drive adoption rates. Consumer preference, education, and willingness to change will define the spectrum of transportation fuels used and how quickly the various options will come to market. Transparency on the advantages and disadvantages of alternatives, supporting fit-for-purpose solutions, and ensuring the cost of GHG abatement is manageable for consumers is also important. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the Biofutures platform.
Dave, thank you very much for that intervention. Obviously, the fuel sector understands the magnitude of the challenge that we face. and you also have that deep knowledge in terms of not only achieving scale, but delivering the products. And that experience is fundamental. And we look forward to working with you to establish the, I like your phrase, stable but flexible policies in order to achieve the broader and most relevant societal benefits. So thank you, Dave, and I look forward to working with you in the very near future. Moving on now, our next speaker, also from Canada, representing the company Enerchem, which is a waste to fuels and chemicals company, is Mr. Dennis Arguin, and I apologize for my non-existent French.
Oh, you got it right. Perfect. Thanks, Gerard, for the introduction. And my thanks to the CEM for the opportunity to participate in this launch and to talk a little bit about the Enerchem solution. Enerchem, as you mentioned, is a Canadian startup company of 250 dedicated team members that are highly motivated to help the society to improve its environmental footprint. We've started 20 years ago to develop the technology at our labs from the University of Sherbrooke, and we went to bench scale, and then we went to pilot scale at our Westbury facility, which is also in Quebec, and then to our first commercial scale biorefinery in Edmonton, Alberta, which is a major milestone for the company. Our technology platform is really converting carbon contained in the waste materials through its gasification process to produce ultra-pure syngas that can be then converted into biofuels, circular chemicals. Enerchem is the first company in the world to produce renewable methanol and ethanol. Both are chemicals and biofuels, and they are produced from non-recyclable, non-compostable municipal solid waste at full commercial scale. In this adventure, we are in partnership with the City of Edmonton that is providing us the waste feedstock. So it's a very nice partnership that we have with the local community. Our solution replaces the use of fossil sources like petroleum and natural gas to produce sustainable transportation fuels and chemicals that are used in a broad range of everyday products. Our standard, just to give you a sense, biorefinery will convert circa 400,000 tons per year of non-recyclable municipal solid waste. So just want to make the emphasis here. We do not compete with the recycling. We are using the material that will go post-recycling either into landfills or into incineration. And from those 400,000 tons of waste material, we'll produce about 200,000 tons per year of circular biomethanol or other product. Also, our syngas platforms enables the deployment of other technology, not only Enerchem technology, but other technology, such as the one for the production of renewable gasoline, sustainable aviation fuel, green diesel, and a series of different recycled chemicals. We develop projects with industrial, financial, local government partners that help build the circular economy through valorization of waste material into circular and biosyngas, fuel, and chemicals. And those are having the same and exact composition as the one issue from hydrocarbons. So the customer, the end customer, which could be the car user, but could be also the chemical industry, the refinery, they don't see any difference in the product that we send to them, but it's the same, but from a recycled source. Enerchems offer an innovative, sustainable solution for waste management, energy diversification, and the implementation of circular economy. We are now working with our partners, Shell, Proman, Suez, Repsol, Suncor, and the Port of Rotterdam to develop facility through North America and Europe. We have announced recently the financial close of a biorefinery in Montreal, about an investment of about $800 million Canadian, with Shell, Suncor, Proman, and Hydro-Québec. And Hydro-Québec will provide us with our needs in green hydrogen and green oxygen from a 90 megawatt water electrolyzer. So this is a first match of our biorefinery with the hydrogen production from water, which is novel but also very green. We know firsthand the importance of regulation and policy support to an industry, such as biofuel, renewable, or circular chemicals. We see that jurisdiction with long-term aggressive mandate that are fuel and technology agnostic succeed in attracting facility development and the economics benefit associated to them. They are also able to attract the low carbon fuel to replace fossil fuels and realizing the greenhouse gas saving locally. It's important for the industry, for the investor, for the technology developer to work within a framework that is as a long-term security. So the policy that are being developed right now to address our transition into a low carbon fuel and low carbon chemical is very important for the success of this transition. So we certainly hope and we support the Biofuture platform, and we're sure that will help increase the visibility and sensitivity to those needs. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dennis. And it's very impressive the role that Enerchem is carving out in establishing the global circular economy, and a very impressive list of partners that we look forward to recruiting to the Biofuture campaign. I look forward to working with you to help communicate the need for these stable policies. Thank you very much for your intervention. And at this time, I hand off, I believe, to Paulo Frankel to wrap up our session.
Thank you so much, Jerry. And please allow me to take just a few takeaways, and I apologize for whether they are not exhaustive. The first, the world will need fuels, chemicals, and materials also in a net zero emission scenario, and they will need to be low carbon. And as mentioned by our director, by the executive director, Dr. Birol, to go to a net zero emission scenario, we will need a quantum leap, a step change in innovation, which will also bring economic development and jobs. And this is a huge opportunity for the bioenergy, biomaterial sector and the waste sectors. Second point is the government will have to produce the right rules to attract investment, but the innovation will have to come from the private sector. This is why a meeting like this and the launch of the campaign is so important, to engage more actively with the private sector. And today, we heard some great examples from biopolymers, from biomaterials, from processes that lead to net life cycle benefit. And I also was so glad to hear about the link between the bio-waste streams with the hydrogen circular economy. But the net zero emission path is achievable but narrow, and will happen at one condition. There is massive policy action to enable the investment and to give the business a predictable environment for investments. Otherwise, someone said it very explicitly, this investment will simply not happen. So let me conclude on one final point, which is the importance of international collaboration, like we do here in the CEM campaign under the CEM initiative. Now, the first is to show best practices, as we heard today, but it is also to address the more difficult issues, and one was mentioned a couple of times today. The sustainability of biomass use and production is still a controversial topic, and there are very also aggressive positions in the world around the community against this. Now, what I would like to say is that the Biofuture Platform Initiative will work with dedicated working groups in coalition with other entities, with the Global Bioenergy Partnership, with the IEA Secretariat, with IRENA, with FAO, with the IEA Bioenergy Technology Collaboration Program, among others, in a coalition of the willing to increase the consensus on these controversial aspects around the life cycle of biomass. And in this process, the involvement of industry is incredibly important. We count on your input, on your criticism if needed, but also on your wish list, what industry would like to have from policymakers in order to make this biofuture a reality. And I want to stress the focus is in this decade, 2030. This is the crucial decade to make a net zero emission global world by 2050. Thank you very much for your attention. And now I give the floor to the head of the CEM Secretariat, Mr. Dan Dorner. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo. Excellent remarks there. Look, my thanks and congratulations to all for today's excellent event and for launching the Clean Energy Ministerial's new Biofuture campaign. On behalf of the Clean Energy Ministerial's global community, I want to say how happy and proud we are to welcome the Biofuture campaign into our work program. Building on the success of the Biofuture Initiative, this campaign has a strong start and an ambitious agenda. But we all know that the topic of substituting fossil-based fuels, chemicals, and materials with their bio-based equivalents is an important one, and that this campaign is therefore very, very timely. We now have a collective goal and a collective responsibility to ensure that we achieve that goal. If you're serious about climate change, you have to be serious about the role of bioenergy and growing a global bioeconomy. And if you're serious about sustainability, you have to be serious about ensuring that bioenergy plays a positive role in creating a circular global economy. CEM campaigns are a really important way to build a committed global coalition and community, to foster public-private partnerships, and to build individual actions and commitments into collective change. The private sector is clearly going to be crucial to this campaign, as it is across our work program, and I'm very happy to see that CEM governments and partners are already actively engaging with many companies. Accelerating clean energy action, emissions reductions, and ultimately achieving global net zero will not just take 200 national governments, it will take the millions of companies and billions of consumers and citizens collectively. I'd like to just take this opportunity to congratulate the government co-leads of the Biofuture campaign, Brazil, Canada, India, Netherlands, and the United States for their leadership and vision. I'd also like to thank the IEA and the Biofuture Workshop as co-campaign managers for their excellent work developing a strong, analytically sound and ambitious campaign. Paolo, Gerard, you've done a great job. The Biofuture campaign clearly shows great promise, but now we need to turn that great promise into great practice and its great ambition into great action. A lot of great work has been put into the development of the campaign, and we in the CEM Secretariat and the CEM's global family are thrilled to see it launched, determined to support it in any way we can, and committed to seeing the CEM Biofuture campaign go from strength to strength. In all of this, as Paolo rightly said, international collaboration is key. Thank you very much.